Hi, I'm Marlo. In our last video I showed you how to turn textile waste into yarn like this. Now I'm going to show you how to knit with it. If you'd like to learn how to crochet, I will teach you. But not today. This is about me. It's about knitting. So I'll show you 5 main skills. 5, not 10. I'll show you 5 main skills. We'll start with the slip knot, cast on, knit stitch, purl stitch, and cast off. And at the end, you'll have a little sample like this. Maybe yours will be a bit bigger, you'll have practiced more, but this is what I ended up with. If you're using the fabric yarn we made together, I'd suggest using a thick needle. The ones I'm using are 12mm or US size 17. A thicker needle is also a bit easier to learn on. It helps your hands get used to the movements. Along with your yarn and needles, you'll need a good pair of scissors. The slip knot is the first step in knitting. This creates the first loop that goes onto your knitting needle. Wrap the yarn down the back of your fingers and up the front, then insert the yarn through the bit wrapped around your fingers to create a loop. Hold the tail end to tighten the knot. Now that you have this loop, place it onto your needle and pull the working yarn, that's the yarn attached to the ball of yarn you made, to tighten the loop around the needle. Don't tighten it too much as you'll need it kind of loose enough to work with. The next step is now to cast on the needle. When knitting, there's English style and continental style. The main difference is that you hold the working yarn in a different hand. I was taught in the English style, which is where you hold your yarn in your right hand, so this is the way that I'll show you. Now that you have your slip knot on your needle, you can begin casting on. Hold the needle with the yarn on it in your left hand. In your right hand, hold the empty needle. Insert this right needle from the front left side of the loop to the back. Taking the working yarn in your right hand, wrap it counterclockwise around the right needle. Pull this loop through the slip knot loop, kind of scoop it through. Now, place this new loop or stitch onto the left needle. This is your first cast on stitch. Do this a few more times and you'll start to see them add up. The first basic stitch you need to know is called the knit stitch. Once you have a cast on row of stitches, you can begin knitting. To create your knit stitch, you'll insert your right hand needle from the left side of the stitch to the back, the same way you would when casting on. Again, wrap the working yarn around the needle and pull it through. This time, instead of looping this onto the left-hand needle, you'll slip the original loop off the left-hand needle and have a new stitch on the right-hand needle. Repeat this process for the rest of the row. To begin a new row of knitting, just switch the needles in your hands. Purl stitch is the second type of stitch in knitting. It's basically a backwards knit stitch. This row will work in purl. In the knit stitch, you insert your needle from the front on the left side of the loop. To begin a purl stitch, you instead insert your needle from the back to the front. Now take your working yarn and wrap it around the right needle. As with knit stitch, bring the loop from the stitch on the left needle and slip it off the needle. Follow along as I continue this stitch across the row. Practice your purl and knit stitches as many times as you'd like before moving on to the cast off skill. The final skill in the video is the cast off. This gives a finished edge to your knitting and takes it off the needle. To begin, you simply knit 2 stitches onto your right needle. Next, you'll insert your left needle through the first stitch that you made. You will slip this stitch over the second stitch and off of your needle, but make sure to keep the second stitch on your needle. You'll repeat this process by now knitting a new stitch from your left needle onto your right needle and slipping the earlier stitch over it and off the needle. Once you reach the last stitch, knit that onto your right needle, slip the previous stitch off, and you are left with 1 stitch on the right needle. You can cut your working yarn now, leaving about 5 inches for cushion. You can take the loop off of your needle, making sure to maybe keep your finger through it, and you'll thread your tail of yarn through the loop. You can now pull the yarn and tighten this knot, and you're finished with your practice sample. Alright, now you're all done with your knitting sample. Hopefully it's a bit bigger than mine, you've done more practicing, but now you have all the skills you need for our next project. Next time we're going to be making a coaster, and it should be all the same skills and maybe 1 extra thing. If you'd like to learn how to crochet, look out for Elena, and I'll see you next time.